Hey guys, JP here. Now, a little while ago I did a video on these. This is called the WIDI Master. This is a 5-pin DIN to Bluetooth connection, and they're really great. You can plug it into anything that's got normal traditional MIDI, and it'll transmit it over Bluetooth, and it's really low latency. I did a full video on it, and I think they're really great. If you want to see that video, I'm going to put it in the cards now. The company who make these are called CME-PRO, and they reached out to me after I did that review, and they've sent me this. This is the Witty Jack. Now, I mentioned this in the original video, and this Witty Jack is Bluetooth MIDI over TRS, which a lot of companies are using now, certainly for things like pedals. So today we're going to put this through its little paces, plug it in and see how it works. Now before we carry on, I've got a little something for you. If you're into looping, then I've got a free PDF that you can download that's on my website. Just head over to johnpaulmusic.co.uk, go all the way to the bottom, and the PDF is there for you to download. It just gives you my pro tips of what you can do for looping. Now, let's see what this can do. Now CME didn't just send me the Witty Jack, what they also did is very graciously sent me a load of cables. So what we've got here is multiple cables that are TRS to either 1/4 inch or 5-pin MIDI, for example, or literally TRS to TRS. So I can test it on lots of different things. The Witty Jack itself, the virtual MIDI interface, quite simple packaging, and on the back here you can see it's Bluetooth 5, it's MIDI over Bluetooth low energy, and then we've got MIDI in and out with your 2.5mm jack TRS, and then we've got a Type-C for the power. Now it's compatible with lots of different things. You've got WIDI Master, WIDI Jack, WIDI U-Host, WIDI-Bud, and these are all the other ones that they actually sell. The compatible apps, you just need to make sure that you're on iOS 8 or later, which most people are now, and then OS 10 for the Mac, Yosemite or later. The latency is as low as 3 milliseconds. And the range is 20 meters. Now you can now do firmware updates to this little box, which is over-the-air firmware using the WIDI app, which is on both iOS and Android. So we'll crack this open and let's get it connected. So you join us here and we've got the Witty Jack. Now a couple of things about this. You'll notice it's got like an up and a down arrow, that's your MIDI in and out. On the side we've got USB Type-C for plugging in and charging. And we've got a little reset button, so if you press that reset button for 3 seconds, then that'll reset it back to factory settings. Now 2 tricks it's got up its sleeve. The first one is this. It's actually got a little magnet, and that's quite cool. You can just stick that anywhere. So you put that on maybe the side of your pedal board, or put it on the back of your keyboard, whatever you want to do, and then boop, it just magnetizes. Really useful. Really cleverly thought out. And then the other thing is the USB Type-C. Now you only need to plug that in if you're not using the MIDI out. If your other device like the keyboard or the pedal board can actually send power through the MIDI out, that'll power it. So today what we've got here on the table is a Morningstar MC8. I've chosen the 5-pin DIN to jack connector, just for example, and then we've got the iPad. Now, the iPad itself is completely separate, there are no wires, it's just recording the screen right now, just to show you what's going on. I'm going to plug this in. The Morningstar has a couple of options, so if you did have things like TRS jack, you can plug in that way. But I'm just going to plug the MIDI out to this, so let's do that now. And then plug the Witty Jack in to the MIDI out. Now as soon as you do that, you'll notice that it actually starts flashing blue, and what that means is it's searching. So for this example, I'm actually going to show you 3 things. First of all is the WIDI app. Now when you go into the WIDI app, you need it for iOS or Android, and it just searches for it. This is the way you can update the firmware, and you can change a couple of settings if you want to. And as you can see, as long as your Bluetooth is on your device, it finds it, and it found it. So we can just click WIDI Jack, it finds it, it'll pair up to it, and that's it. It just realizes it's there. Now there's a couple of things you can do. First of all, you can change the BLE roll. So for example, I'd leave it on auto, but you can force the peripheral to computers. If you've got lots of Bluetooth different devices, it just makes it a nice connection. And then if you scroll down a little bit here, you've got another setting which is prefer low latency or prefer low jitter. If you're using things like pedal boards, you want it to work instantly. So I'd say leave it on prefer low latency, because that way you're going to get the fastest connection. You can also update the firmware. I'd really recommend to do that. I've already done that ahead of time. Now with the WIDI system, you can actually group things together. So if you've got like a WIDI Jack and a WIDI Master and a WIDI Hub, that's one of the other ones, you can actually group them together to do the same thing. So you can actually have no computer at all and actually get this maybe talking to a HX Stomp, for example. And you have one connected on this side, the other side connected to the Stomp, and they'll just talk to each other. There's no computer in the middle, and that's really cool. And of course, you can go to factory settings. So you can see here at the bottom, you've got devices, and then you've also got groups. So we could add a new group and we could group them all up if you wanted to. So I want to show you an example of how this works, and of course the example I'm going to show you is Loopy HD. So let's go into Loopy HD. You can see on the Morningstar I've actually got mine set up for Loopy HD. If you want to see how I did that, I've got a separate video all about the Morningstar, and I've got a video about the Morningstar connecting it to Loopy HD as well. So I'll leave them in the description box below. But right now you can see the Witty Jack is flashing away. So let's go into settings and let's pair it up. So we can go into control inputs on this particular app, and it is different depending on which app you're using. But we can actually go to Bluetooth connections. There it is. We can see the Witty Jack is not connected. So let's give it a tap and it'll connect it up. There we go. It just takes a second and it can connect it. So now you can see there's a Witty Jack. Actually, you can see there's two, and the reason for that is because I've disconnected it and reconnected it before. But I just wanted to show you that it does connect up, and you can give it a tick. You can untick it if you don't want it, or tick it if you do. Again, different apps do different things, so just be aware of the app that you're using. But for Loopy HD, that works really well. Now, I'm going to go into it and we're going to add a binding. For this version of Loopy, I've not set any binding whatsoever, but I did set bindings on this one. So they should marry up. So if I now click add binding, it's now waiting for an event. Let's click record. And there we go. It's as simple as that. It's sending it over Bluetooth. And did you see how quick that was? Let me just change these over. It's pretty instant. So we're going to go record overdub. Let's just change that, and we're going to say, well, we want that to be record overdub track select, and we want that to be toggling recording. And that's it. I can go select a track, or I can pick a specific track, save the binding, and can just carry on from there. Let me just, for example, get completely out of this. So I'm going to get out of Loopy, I'm going to go to a different app, and we're going to go to Quantiloop Pro. Now straight away, without me even touching anything, the iPad itself has remembered that there is a Bluetooth connection there for MIDI. And you can see at the bottom that actually the MIDI in is red. So if we actually give it a click, we can see that there's MIDI in there. Let's go to Bluetooth MIDI. Should we allow Bluetooth? Yes. And we can already see the Witty Jack's connected. One caution I actually said in the previous video is what you need to do is you actually swipe up and have a look. Loopy HD is still connected, so you need to make sure that you swipe it away and disconnect it completely. Otherwise, when you hit these, it's going to control both apps at the same time. So let's go over to another app. This is Synth 1, and we're going to be using a foot pedal for Synth 1. I've got it all set up for Loopy HD, but it doesn't matter. Just wanted to show you how it works. Now this isn't ideal, but let's just actually have this as a MIDI learn for something. So we'll go MIDI learn, and then what we're going to do is I'm going to actually tap that one, hold that down. Straight away you can see it moves. It works. So we switched it up. This time we've got the Morningstar MC8. I've gone and got the WIDI Master, which was actually from the back of my keyboard, and I've plugged it into the MIDI in and out of the Morningstar. And we've got the Boss RC500. Now this takes MIDI in via TRS jack, which I've got here. So we've got the TRS jack just going there, and we're going to go to MIDI out. And then we're going to go to the MIDI out of this, and again it will actually supply the power. So let's plug that in. Now look at that, straight away you can actually see the devices are actually talking to each other. I've not done anything at all, I've just plugged them in and they recognize each other straight away. Now they can actually start sending MIDI information across and it'll start moving it around. Now I've not set up the RC500 with the MIDI commands that I had on here from previously. I've actually deleted them from here from other tutorials that I've done. But if you want to see how I set the Morningstar up with this, then I do have a video about that as well. So imagine for 1 second you don't want to use MIDI cables or the MIDI cable 5-pin, you don't have to TRS. This way you can actually plug in completely wirelessly technically, and these two would just talk to each other straight away. Also, if you've got something else that is MIDI compliant like an iPhone or an iPad, maybe you want to use the iPhone or the iPad as a controller for this, you could do that because then it'll talk to it via Bluetooth. Alternatively, I could take this without any MIDI cables, and if I'm bringing it into maybe someone else's place and I need to control, say, an amp that's got Bluetooth control, I could do that straight away without having to take the amp down, plug it in through the back. This will just control it once I've got it set up. Now of course the WIDI Master is there obviously for 5-pin DIN, and we've had that since what, the 80s? MIDI itself with TRS of course is more functional, it's easier, it's more compatible, but with having all the other connectors available, which now CME do sell separately, it's really useful because you could plug it into pretty much everything. As more things come out in 2021 and we lead into 2022, I think we're starting to see more things with Bluetooth which are low power Bluetooth. That means it's really low latency. And certainly for keyboard players, I'm happy to prove that it works, certainly in the last video. But for things like this, where you've got a pedal board and you need that pedal to work instantly, 3 to 5 milliseconds is no time at all, and you shouldn't feel that there's any kind of latency. The WIDI app, of course, takes it one stage further. Great idea that you can actually update it through iOS or Android as opposed to plugging it into a PC or Mac, which of course you can still do, and there's nothing to stop you doing that. Again, I just want to thank CME for sending out the Witty Jack. I do think it's a fab little device, especially the fact it's got a little magnet on the back. You could stick it on the side of anywhere. That's really cleverly thought out. If you do want to pick one of these up, I have left a link in the description box below for both the Witty Master and the Witty Jack, and they are affiliated links, which means that I do get a little bit of money if you do buy one, but of course at no extra cost to you. Now this video has been all about the Witty Jack. If you want to see the video about the Witty Master, then well, it's right there. Give it a click. Go on, you've lasted this long. You want to click it, don't you? Go on.